The IMF has conducted a financial sector assessment program. It's found that Kenyan banks generally are in good stead. They are well capitalized, but the IMF's raised some concerns about regulation. What are those concerns?
Well, first, let me say it's true. I think that one of the reasons the Kenyan financial sector got through the global financial crisis so well is because it was extremely well positioned coming into the crisis. Kenya has one of the most highly capitalized banking systems in sub-Saharan Africa. It is also very liquid. We've seen the quality of their asset portfolio improve over the years, so it's in very good shape coming into this crisis. Mm-hmm. I think that our recommendations to the authorities, primarily the central bank, pertain not so much to what they have been doing with regard to regulating commercial banks, but extending that regulation. There are a lot of other issues out there, including cross-border bank issues, cross-border exposures, and also consolidated banking supervision, to look not only at the bank, but the broader group that it rests within. And on the issue of microfinancing, there are over 4,000 microfinance institutions in Kenya that are, up until now, completely unregulated. These are deposit-taking institutions. And it's important, in order to ensure the continued strength of the financial sector, that the risks in this sector are appropriately managed.
What does the IMF propose as better oversight? I know that with the microlenders, the concerns have been about deposit risks, the concerns have been about managing bank assets and weak liquidity ratios, but some of those concerns also extend into the mainstream banks as well.
Well, the mainstream banks, the 44 commercial banks in Kenya are generally highly liquid. Virtually, in fact, all of the banks, the last period of supervision, were meeting the liquidity ratios, meeting the capital asset ratios. We're generally seeing their non-performing loans coming down. So those banks are fairly well positioned. Again, it's really a matter of extending the improvements in supervision over the banking sector to the financial sector as a whole. In some sense, it's hard to say how strong or how weak the microfinance institutions are, because they're not completely on the radar screen at the moment. And the introduction of the microfinance institution bill and the giving of the supervisory authority to the central bank is aimed at making sure that these institutions stay sound.
Okay, there's also the question of the demutualisation of the NSE, which it's reported has faced some resistance from stockbrokers not wanting to sell their stakes in the NSE. That process is now underway, and by next year, many brokerages should have sold their stakes through IPOs. What does the IMF say about that situation?
Well, we don't have a view on how the difficulties that they're having in undertaking this demutualization. It is something that we had discussed with the Capital Markets Authority. I think perhaps Stella Colanzo is in a better position to discuss this with you than I am. But basically, the primary reason for this is simply to strengthen the governance and the oversight of the brokers themselves. At the moment, the NSE board is comprised of the brokers, and there have been, as everyone in Kenya knows, some concerns over the integrity and the oversight of these brokers. And this is really about improving the oversight, getting more people involved in the stock exchange, improving competition, and improving oversight of the actions of the brokers.
All right, governance is an important issue, not just in financial services, but just in terms of perceptions of how well run the Kenyan economy is. We've seen issues or allegations of graft leveled against senior ministers within the Grand Coalition. We know the US government has been reluctant to engage the Kenyan administration because of what they seem as not sufficient reforms in tackling issues of corruption. So as you look at the outlook for Kenya and look at the flows of investments into this economy, how would you rate governance standards in Kenya in general?
Well, I don't, and the IMF doesn't do a ranking of governance standards in our member countries. I think that the challenges are very well known in Kenya, both in public finance management, in judicial processes, in the issues with the police, and in the like. The IMF's contribution in this is to focus on areas where we have some expertise, primarily in public financial management and in financial sector oversight and in tax administration. We have been working with the government for some time on helping them develop a comprehensive public financial management bill that will strengthen the financial oversight of, public finances, but also strengthen the ability to monitor what's being spent at all levels of government, both through technological improvements, but also by strengthening the position and the authority of the finance ministry and also the Auditor General's office to actually undertake the audits and the reviews and the controls that are necessary. There are a lot of other aspects of governance that need to be addressed that are outside our area of competence. The judiciary is one, for example. Police is another. I think all of Kenya's partners are trying to do what they can and provide assistance where they can.
Okay, nonetheless, the IMF has been upbeat in terms of its outlook for Kenya in the last week, saying that the Kenyan economy would grow 4.5% in 2010 and as much as 6% in the next year. On what basis have those forecasts been made? Because we know that Kenya is coming off a low base following the electoral crisis in 2008 and having survived the impact of the global recession as well.
Yeah, first of all, just a quick correction. Our outlook for 2010 is about 4.1%, goes up to about 5.5% in 2011, and we see it rebounding back up to about 6.5%, which is where it was before the crisis hit. You know, if you look at the path of the economy since the election violence, there was a very sharp contraction in the first quarter of 2008 after the electoral violence, post-election violence. But the economy fully rebounded from that by the second quarter. I mean, by the middle of 2008, GDP was 3% higher than it was before the crisis. It was a very strong rebound. But then it got hit with record high oil prices, record high fertilizer prices, and after that came the financial collapse and then drought. So Kenya's had a number of bad, negative external shocks imposed upon it. But what we're expecting is that we'd already seen signs of recovery coming out of 2008, and we expect that to gain strength moving ahead. And with the recovery in the global economy, albeit slow and weak, we think that the prospects for growth in Kenya are improving every quarter.